Okay, this week on When Shit Happens, we're once again in reflective mood. I'd like to go back to the themes that I touched on in the very first episode of When Shit Happens. Namely, the nature of people coming into the business. Now, there are a number of people in this industry, particularly amongst the old regional brewers, who dislike progressive beer duty intensely and hold that responsible for the rapid increase in the number of breweries in the UK in the last 15 or so years. Now, I'm the guy who convinced the government to introduce progressive beer duty in the first place, so naturally I'm going to be inclined to disagree with that point of view. And I won't say that there isn't a cause and effect to some degree, however. At the recent Craft Brewers Conference in the States this year, it was reported that there are some 2,000 microbreweries in the pipeline, on the drawing board, or being constructed, or being planned. Now, I don't see how progressive beer duty in the United Kingdom can attract 2,000 new breweries into the market in the United States. So I think there's something else going on. And I think it's a combination of factors. It's zeitgeist, and it's recession. People in recession are looking for things to do. And not all of them are the right people looking for the right idea. And that is part of the problem. Let me give you an example. Only this week, some chump phoned me up and told me that he had a recipe and would I brew it for him. He was a plummy mouth sort of a guy, so my first reaction is, why is this idiotic Rupert talking to me? But he wasn't an idiot because he was a Rupert. He was an idiot because he had a very low IQ. And he seemed to think that if I made a beer for him, he could then parade it around the pubs in London and sell it as though this something somehow told them something about him. I pointed out to him that if I made his beer, it would tell the pubs in London rather more about me than it did about him. And since all he seemed to have was a recipe for an American pale ale, I couldn't really see where the intellectual property value lay. It's a bit like walking around saying you've got a recipe for roast beef. I'll try and sell that to someone. Anyway, I did ask him if he thought I would be really keen to help him set up in business in competition with me, at which point he kind of started to see that maybe he hadn't brought out his idea properly. So I asked him why he was doing it, and he said, well, I like beer. I like breathing, but I've got no plans to become a respiratory surgeon. And this, I'm afraid, is part of the problem. It's not progressive beer duty. It's not the cost of equipment. The entry costs of brewing are too low. But they're not the financial costs. They're not the fiscal costs. They're the intellectual costs. Because any home brewer can set up as a brewer. And everyone seems to think that's okay. As I always say, my wife likes my cooking, but that doesn't qualify me to be a chef.